Karen said Harry has no internet, so he's just going to try to call in with an audio call. Right. Looks like we got a new caller. Harry, are you on?
I just got on, yes.
Okay.
Okay, you have
Harry,
no video, though, correct?
Pardon?
You have no video, just audio, correct?
I've just got audio, no video.
Are you going to be able to do the minutes?
I'll try.
Okay.
I don't know how well it'll work.
You can do it from the broadcast. We'll have this recorded and posted soon after the meeting, or I can send you the video recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Lou.
All right.
Lou,
And?
make yourself the presenter.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Okay, when you click whatever it is you just clicked, you were taking the presenter role. So you don't want to do that unless it's on your computer. All right, I think we're good.
Okay, hold on.
I'm going to start the recording.
Call recording is on.
And it's your meeting.
Welcome. Thank you, Katie. Welcome, everyone, to a slightly delayed Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Thanks to our IT department for getting us up and running as quickly as they have this rainy morning. I'm just now calling the meeting to order at 9:08 a.m. and we do have a quorum of our members present. The minutes from our meeting of December 15th, 2020 were distributed to everyone. I have not had any information from anyone of changes or additions. Do I have any now? If not, we will accept those minutes by consensus. Before we move on to Pete Finelli with the December financials, I do want to welcome Gary Bosack to our committee. Gary is a longtime resident of Sun City West. He is replacing Terry Burks, who has resigned, unfortunately, and will be missed, but Gary is going to be a good addition. Gary has been a member of the golf committee before, and he has many, many years of business experience, and I think he'll be a valuable member. Despite the fact that he does know Lou and Harry, that was a little suspect, but you know, I
Intimately.
Think he's a great member. So I'm going to turn the meeting over now. I'm going to mute and turn this over to Pete Finelli, who will present us with the December financial statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Pete.
Howdy. So, first, a rundown of the current month on the revenue side, upper left-hand corner. The current month is somewhat of a microcosm of the COVID impacts. We all know golf has had a strong resurgence. It had almost 6,000 rounds over budget and reflected in 115,000 more in golf fees, and down in the ancillary revenue where the majority is cart rentals and range balls. Those you see as our positives. We do face headwinds in virtually all the other categories of our revenues, including guest fees, tenant cards under membership, hall rentals, tours, Explorer under recreation, bowling under the pavilion, special events, of course, and then the sales at our courses. Even though golf's up, many of the restrictions on the pro shops are impacting that. So overall revenues, despite the positive golf environment and ancillary positive, about a 28,000 shortfall to our budget. Moving to the expenses, the overall expenses were down to budget by 194,000. A little over half of that is reflected within our wages, benefits. This is continuing with open positions in certain categories, delayed raises for our full-time staff that were supposed to go effective July 1 and were built into the budget. Those were delayed until January 1 to line up with our minimum wage increases. And of course, facility restrictions, especially in the summer months, gave some of those things were more hardy, but many of them have been reestablished, especially with the Kuntz opening. Most of the other expenses fall in line with certain categories of COVID impact. Supplies and service and equipment, for example, are down as we've delayed certain purchases and services. The only notable negative, if I would be in landscape maintenance, and in discussions with Todd, the conversion for overseeding this year was, with the lack of rain, was more difficult than in most years. So again, the overall operating margin of $166,000 against the budget assist us as we enter into the second half of the year. Down in capital rated real briefly, as you know, we've switched to a 90-10 in our Vanguard funds as part of the reserve funds, and so investment gains or losses are going to be more muted. I did want to mention that the investment income within our dividends posted at the end of December for bonds were like 2.1% effective annual yield, and that's holding up better than somewhat anticipated, mostly due to the investment in intermediate and long-term bonds that is part of our portfolio. Under APF, nice, strong. You all know the housing market with the low interest rates and interest in Sun City West is continuing to manifest itself in our APF revenues, and so that's a positive. Moving briefly to the year-to-date, almost the same explanations that are rendered for the current month manifest themselves in the year-to-date. Strong golf revenues, ancillary offset by some median to sometimes rather large misses on some of the other operating revenues that are impacted by COVID. Similarly, on operating expenses, for all the issues that I mentioned earlier, we're benefiting from offsets on the expense side to the tune of a little over $1 million. So overall, a miss of 216 on the revenues, offset by that $1 million favorable on operating, gives us $848,000 operating margin as we enter the second half. I do want to reiterate, January to March in particular, are into the budget are built some rather sizable revenues for tenant cards, which are showing some considerable weakness from what we've seen already. Guest fees, of course, can be sizable. Bowling will continue to likely come up shortfall, and special events can be as much as $50,000 a month on our revenue. So I'm not saying those are all going to result in decline, but the $848,000 is not a guarantee that we're going to be at that at year end. We may need every penny to offset some of these upcoming headwinds. Moving down to capital rated, real strong strength into our reserve funds year to date, between investment income and the realized and unrealized gains. We have about a $1.9 million between those three numbers of $252,000, $3.1 million, and a negative 1.4. That $1.9 million has bolstered our revenue and our reserve funds year to date, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the next section of the agenda. You see the APFs at $294,000, almost 100 year-to-date sales over our budget or prior year. So we're real pleased with that. On depreciation, some delays associated with the deferred capital spend has pushed back the start dates and the implementation dates of the capital versus what was expected. And so overall, the $2.4 million non-capital related, the vast majority coming from the realized gains and APFs. So good position on that year to date as well. And I think that's pretty much it. I open for questions.
Thank you, Pete. If anyone has any questions, we'll just take them. I'll just start going down the list. Harry, do you have any questions?
No.
Luke? Lou, can you hear me?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Kathy?
No questions.
Lisa?
No questions.
Gary,
No, I'm good with what he said.
thank you. And John,
No questions.
thank you very much. We will move on then with update on capital and reserves, which, are you through with your presentation on the financial Pete?
I am.
Okay, we'll move on then with the capital update. Thank you.
Thank you. Brief update on that and the reserve funds. The year-to-date, the governing board approved $5.9 million for the fiscal year 2021 capital budget. The amount of purchase orders issued year-to-date is just over $3.5 million. Of that, a little under 600,000 were for prior year encumbrances. Such that just about $3 million on our $5.9 million has been issued on the current year budget items. For items that are actually been executed, paid to the vendor, and we put into either our savings or loss column, on just under 1.5 million of closed purchase orders, we've been able to see 213,000 recognized savings on that. So a good position to be as we enter the second half of the year. A brief item, as you all know, the board released the deferred capital, that 1.8 million of deferred capital that was, so to speak, put into abeyance to see how the first half of the year was going, and as of December, governing board, they released that. So some items of materiality are likely to get moving forward, most notably the Palm Ridge parking lot and lighting, the R.H. Johnson flooring, Beardsley checks, former 25 golf carts, and some pickup trucks, and mattering of less than 30,000, just to keep this list from being too extensive. Carl can maybe speak to this more, but I know we're getting bids on the transformer already, and we've already had received bids back in this early part of summer on the parking lot. So you all know what allowances are. The budget called for these 7 items to have various amounts of budget allowance. You can see the actual spend to the right. And so on 435,000 mid-year, 179 has had POs executed on them. So 256, or about 60% remaining of the allowance as we enter the second half of the year. I'd ask any questions on capital before I move forward with reserve fund.
Pete, I have
This is
one. This is Ann. Concerning the energy conservation, you are over in that category by $14,000. Will there be savings in other areas to compensate for that?
Well, yes, that's actually within the whole principle of the capital spend. Just to give you the policies, the general manager actually has the ability and the authority to execute anything up to $50,000 on a project that comes in over the approved amount before there has to be what's called a facts and findings presentation to the governing board. And so year to date, not only that 213,000 I referenced gave the opportunity for this to be executed on the conservation, but also it's within his authority even had there been a more muted amount in order to get the job done.
Thank you very much, Pete. John, I believe you started to ask a question.
Yes, sorry to sort of tromp on you there a little. Pete, what is changing demographics?
I'll get the items in a second from my actual capital, but generally speaking, when there are impacts within the community that relate to usage of certain facilities, oftentimes we reference that for, say, changes to a hall or a room that is recognizing changes within the dynamics of that club or something like that. If you don't mind, give me 1 second and I'll pull up the 1 or 2 or 3 items that make that up, and we can get more clarity on that. I'm sorry I wasn't prepared to remember that acutely, but that's, I'll try and get it quickly here.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions while that's going on, while I'm pulling that up?
If anyone has any other questions for Pete, he's not quite finished, so we'll go do general questions at the end of this presentation on capital and reserves.
Yeah,
Pete, just let us know when you're ready.
Sure, I apologize. I'll get them here real quick. All right.
Anyone else has questions, just turn on your mic and speak, please.
Yes, okay, the 2 items were, and maybe Katie, you might be able to help me on this one. The first vendor was Archicad Architects. Carl, you may be able to help me on this, but this was for the Beardsley Design Aquatics Lobby. And the second item was paid to vendor Multicard, which was for club scanning software development associated with, like I was talking about, when the clubs come up with new demands throughout the year. This allowance allows the GM to proceed with issuing purchase orders up to, like I said, 50,000, but we're not even close to that on either of these 2. If you want to expand on it, Katie or Carl, maybe, I appreciate that.
I can, this is Katie. The club scanning software is so that we can get numbers on who's using which club. So this will allow us to use your existing rec card when you come into a club and scan it, and then we can run reports off of that. Who's in the clubs, how many, what their usage is, that sort of thing.
And this is Carl here. Archicad was deemed necessary to do some research on whether an upcoming proposed project that's being placed in the FY 21-22 budget, we needed some engineering discussions, so we wrote him a small PO to facilitate that before we put a number into the budget.
Okay, thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Katie and Carl. If no other questions, I'll proceed on to a quick discussion on the reserve funds and the FFB percentages. I know this is kind of small. The highlighted column in the middle is the one I'd like us to continue to focus upon. As we exited out of FY20, at the bottom of the second column, you see that we had approximately a 52% percentage of fully funded balance percent. And so we entered into the current year with the budget assumptions across the outflows and inflows. Right now, as I mentioned, on the operating cash flow, the $1.6 million has approximately $848,000 surplus. Again, that's not locked in until year end, but right now we're hopeful that that will continue to contribute to our reserve funds. The subfunded is pretty immaterial. Restricted earnings are on pace to achieve those, as what I was mentioning earlier, that the bond funds and bond dividends are holding up well. We should be able to achieve that $500,000. The unrealized gains, this is actually a year-to-date. The budget holds for 0. We don't ever budget a gain or loss within and realize, just obviously due to the nature of the market. And so the 1.621 is reflective of the year-to-date. I feel that's prudent to always give the update. That used to be a wildly swinging number, and that's why I always felt compelled to put that into this formula to make sure you saw real time what was going on. And of course, now that the 90-10 has been executed, these numbers will be less volatile. The APF, 4.6 million, is no locked in on that. We have some pretty sizable budget months still coming. We have to get almost 150 APFs, for example, in March. I feel like those are still attainable, but right now we do have a 294,000 year-to-date variance in the APF. So the inflows, I think, are all in good shape on those 4 identified items. moving to the outflows, the 5.945 lines from the bottom is our capital outlays. Right now, as I mentioned, we have about 200,000 of recognized savings. The allowances have over 250,000 still to go, and it's my understanding that some projects that, as I mentioned, are starting to go out to bid, or we've reached some preliminary bids. I'd be a little surprised that we don't have a savings on that 5.9, and either in line with the 200,000 year to date, or even a little bit higher. So the outflows should be in a good position, and so as we budgeted, we were anticipating exiting out of the year with a 54% FFB percent. And I can't guarantee 6 months from now. We were in a pretty good shape last January, if you all recall, and the COVID hit and kind of disrupted things. So I never want to lock anything in. But having said that, I like to say at the 6 month mark, I think we're in good shape. Any questions on the reserve?
I'm going to just leave it open. I'm not going to call on everyone individually. So if anyone has a question, please just speak up now. I'm not hearing from anyone. So I'm going to move on to the next item, but I do need to go back to the December 2020 financials. And having not heard any questions or comments or anything to the negative, I'm going to make the assumption, you know how dangerous that is, that we can, by consensus, move these on to the governing board as accepted and filed. Does anyone have anything to the contrary to say on that issue? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to go ahead. 3.03, I just wanted to give you a quick update. At the governing board workshop a week ago last Friday, Pete gave an excellent presentation on the RFQ for the professional investment advisor. Again, I can't thank John Holbold, Lou Mancuso, and Terry Burks enough for the assistance that they provided in making this happen. And the governing board did have several questions, but they were all easily answered, and nothing that appeared to not be acceptable to them. Per our calendar, we presented it at the workshop. It will be presented for a vote at the governing board meeting this coming Thursday. So just checking, does anyone have any further questions on that? If so, I'll just leave it open for questions. Okay, I don't hear anything. I'm going to move on. I apologize. My husband's on the cell phone. He's very loud. I'm going to move on to Carl and Mike Anderson from the Garden Club. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ann. I'd just like to start off with a little introduction. First of all, just to make this a successful moment for the Garden Club as far as presenting goes, and with these virtual meetings, I have invited the leadership, the president, Dave Wingland, Linda Hunter, and then the person they put in charge of working with me on acquiring bids and architectural stuff is Mike Anderson. So I'd like to start off by mentioning, before they give their presentation, that the Garden Club's greenhouse is a repair and replacement project first and foremost. We have an existing greenhouse, approximately 380 square feet. Over the last couple of years, facilities maintenance has really done a heck of a job trying to keep this greenhouse going, and it's just fully met its life expectancy. As far as an asset goes, it's a very old structure, and it's no longer repairable. So the CFO and I have acquired bids for not only a same-for-same replacement, but as we move forward in this discussion today, the Garden Club has come to the table and asked for an expansion. So I just want to clarify that we have established an amount of $150,000 for a replacement project if it was just same for same. And with that being said, I'd like to now turn the mic over to Mike Anderson, who would like to request an expansion at this opportune time. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us present our information today. This has been an experience for us to get to this point with all the things that we've had to do. It took a lot of time and energy to make sure we have a good plan in place moving forward. Next. Our existing greenhouse, as Carl just said, is a little over 300 square feet and is well over 40 years and is past repairable, and our needs have definitely grown, as I'll explain how our club has grown. Next. Our plan to expand is to existing, can you go to the next slide? That was the one on the existing one. There we go. Sorry. Our new plan will be expand the greenhouse at over 960 square feet and will help us utilize the area more. We can use the additional space in the greenhouse for training, planting, and other things. We will be able to sell more plants to our community and at some time guests when it is possible, but we'll also make the backside of Beardsley more attractive and more user-friendly because we've added some storage space. Next. Yeah, we want to use the new facility to help grow our club with experiences like planting, harvesting, watering, feeding our plants. This facility will enable us to be more visible to the community as well. Next. This picture is of the greenhouse in Sun City that was built this last year. They worked with a company called Nexus on their project, and we're very satisfied with the end results. Carl and I were able to go visit it and see some of the advantages to their structure and what they're doing with it. We did get good information to move forward, and their club basically grows seeds, so not the same application, but it was good experience and well received by both parties. Next. This is the floor plan of our new greenhouse that we're proposing. It will enable us to have more room, teach small groups, expand our inventory and other ways to increase our club membership. Next. And basically, I want to thank you for your time and interest in our club. We look forward to making our club strong and grow in the community as we have in the past. Okay, and then the next slide is the board met recently and put together the projections that you see. Basically with COVID, as we all know, there's been challenges and we've had to redo this a number of times. Linda and Dave were very involved with this with our treasurer. So I don't know exactly where I can, explain this in a lot more detail. You can see what we did in COVID sales September after that. And we 50% goes to the village store. Of our sales, 50% goes into savings, and the other 50% into operating. Greenhouse for 2021, again, COVID challenges in what we've done, but we've been able to sell when we can and have been able to generate funds. Non-COVID, we'd be talking a whole different situation. The greenhouse savings we have as of 12/31 was $25,000 that we have been collecting over the last probably 2 years or longer. So, you can see that's what we've collected, and we continue to put 50% of any sales into our savings account. We also have had ideas on how to do fundraisers and other membership things to help increase the money in our account for the greenhouse. So you can see that we're really trying to grow that money before we get there. Then you can also see that we also put in our budget below, as I've worked with Carl in the past, the budgeted numbers that we have, and then the rec center contribution, and then a down payment of what we project. It could possibly be more, of course, and then what the balance would be. And then what we looked at is an 8-year loan with an attainable, amount of money that we could do. We think we can do a lot better than that without some of the situations we have, plus adding some fundraisers to our club that would benefit just the funds of the greenhouse. So I think we have answered as much as we can with the COVID challenge, much more opportunities when we get past that, like anyone else. But we think we have a very good plan in place, a manufacturer that we feel very comfortable. We've done a lot of homework, and we really feel that this would enable our club to grow. We have 261 members now, and it continues to grow now, even through the circumstances that we have. So I think that really shows you what we've worked on and to get here. And I guess if, Carl, should we ask for any questions?
I'd like to just follow this financial portion up, just to make some clarifications. I've gone out to bid to 3 greenhouse companies to get the information provided back to the club. One greenhouse company was unavailable due to their location in the United States. The 2 other strong leaders in being able to provide a greenhouse, Gothic Greenhouse, came in very close and competitive, but Nexus came in the lowest as far as preliminary bidding. And Nexus, the other favorable thing about that was their dollars made it favorable for a Sun City project, and they went with Nexus and had a very successful build of their greenhouse. So again, same for same, 380 square foot greenhouse. The rec centers has a responsibility to about a $150,000 project. I believe that based after doing all the research with the architect and the greenhouse companies, that the remaining cost of the project is approximately $150,000 more. I don't believe that the project will exceed $300,000. So the club in their expansion would be $150,000. Their responsibility for an expansion, and again, they're showing that they have approximately $30,000 to put down as a down payment, and the rest is over an 8-year loan. That is the terms that they have on this spreadsheet.
Carl, this is Ann. I want to preface this to the committee members. This is the first time we have seen something like this. And Carl, please step in if I'm giving misinformation, but this has already gone to the Charter Club Committee, correct, Carl?
It has already gone to properties with a favorable recommendation to move forward. It has also gone to the Chartered Clubs Committee with a favorable recommendation to move forward, with the exception that they use the terms in their minutes of engineering and documents only, and that is not the case. For my understanding of what I'm trying to facilitate for the rec centers and the club, I have a replacement greenhouse due to be done regardless, again, at a replacement value of $150,000, but the club is asking for an expansion, and this is an opportune time for you to hear the request. So technically 2 favorable committee recommendations, and now you're hearing the financials.
Thank you. What they are asking us to do is approve it to go forward to the governing board. This, if we approve it, does not say yes, it's a done deal. The governing board still will have to take this under advisement, and as I understand it, it will be part of the 2021-2022 budget process. So that's where we are with it. Before I open up to general questions, first question I have is if there's an overage or under on this process, does the garden club pay for any overage? And if there's any savings, who gets the savings?
And the savings is both overage and savings are the responsibility of the club, meaning I'm confident that replacing like for like, that I have the accurate numbers. So anything that the club has requested today in the additional funds is also from that same homework. So if there's a cost override above 300, the club is responsible for anything over the 150,000. And if the project comes under, which I am definitely believe is going to be the case, then the club would have a less payback agreement with the CFO.
Another question I have, and maybe Bill can answer this before I open it up to the committee to ask questions, is can you give us a little history of what has happened with other clubs who have done this? Because this is not the first time a club has come forward and gotten a loan through the rec centers. Can Bill or Pete address that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This is Bill. We have had several issues come up similar to this. The most recent have to deal with the auto restoration facility, as well as the stained glass rooms that were improved last year during the budget process. The same can be said, I believe, for yoga, where they contributed some money toward the improvements of their facilities as well. It is something that we are looking at. I believe it's going to be discussed as far as our loan situation goes, because we are obviously not a bank. And that will be on our upcoming workshop, I believe, in February to kind of discuss these types of things. Because down the road, I believe you're going to be presented with a similar situation with potential pickleball expansion. And that will be a considerably sizable amount of money. So we've had worked with these clubs before. They've been very, very good as far as following through with what financial plans they've put together to reimburse and get these facilities completed. So on the upside, that's terrific. And so that's a brief history of where we've been, and we hope to continue.
Thank you very much, Bill. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions now with the committee. And just remember our acceptance or our I should say approval or disapproval of this. It will go to the governing board workshop in February. I believe it may be the 7th. I'm not sure the exact date, but it's that first Friday of February, I believe it is. So that's when it will be discussed by the governing board. So I'm going to go ahead and start with John Hobolt. Do you have questions?
My questions were answered in the discussion on the overs and unders. So thank you very much for asking that question, Ann, and thank you, Carl, and everyone else who chimed in with some good information. So I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy? Kathy Lindell?
Yeah,
Can you
I
hear
am
me?
here. Sorry, I couldn't
Okay.
hit my magic button here. Okay, I do have a couple questions, and it's just because this is the first time I've been on this committee to see a project coming forward. My first question, I guess this would be for Bill, is how does the rec center determine its share of the contribution? Is it a percentage of a project, et cetera? And then the second one would be, is the 8-year loan a 0% interest loan, or do you have some type of administrative fee on it at all?
Thank you. Your first question again was?
Bill, I can take the first question. This is Carl.
Was it I think the answer there is, Carl, is the like for like. I mean, it's our responsibility as these facilities age. It's the rec center's responsibility to kind of work through our repair and replacement program that Pete walked through a little earlier. So the dollar value that Carl presented a little earlier of the $150,000 is to replace and repair what is existing. And then the club is looking to expand, and that onus was then put on them as far as the additional funding goes. Secondly, I believe both or all of the loans that we've worked with these clubs on before have been zero interest.
Yeah, and one other question, does the finance committee ever get to see or get a sense of the amount of, I call them internal loans that are out and the value of that?
I could bring that up either the next BNF with some exact details as far as a PowerPoint, but just to know that all of the loans are in good standing. The two most notable ones are ARC and Pickleball, and both of them are, well, I should say Pickleball made a accelerated component of their payback, and ARC has had some good payment history coming off of their proceeds of their annual fundraisers. Those fundraisers this current year are in some jeopardy, so they've discussed it, but they are on a 10-year repayment, so we feel they'll be in good shape to get back. There's a couple other smaller ones, but all of them are in pretty good order.
Pete, I'd like, this is Ann, I'd like to follow up. I think Kathy has a good request. I think it would help BNF to see a history of this, especially the ones that are currently on the books, and how much we loaned and what the repayment has been. Is that what you're looking for, Kathy?
Yes.
I think so. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Pete, if you could give us that the next time we meet. I don't know if we will be meeting on I believe it's the 2nd of February. We'll see what's on the agenda. If not, we could handle that at the 16th meeting.
They'll do.
Lisa, do you have any questions?
The only thing I have is, Carl, could you, but gentlemen,
Lisa, you're cutting out.
Can you hear me? I know I did cut out. Can you hear me, Ann?
You're coming in better now.
Okay. So the other question that I have is, I know that he mentioned they have 261 members. How much are their annual dues?
$10.
Okay. That was the only question I have.
Thank you, Lisa. Lou, do you have any questions?
And I do not have any questions. I think it was an excellent presentation. I like the drawings. And I believe it's a worthwhile club within the community. They've prospered in the past, and I feel they will continue to prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Harry, do you have any comments?
No comments, no questions. Good presentation.
Okay. Gary, do you have any questions or comments?
One of each. Bill, I know a number of organizations come to you all the time for this kind of thing. Zimmergy is one that strikes me that we did in the past as well. I don't know if the dog park falls in that category or not, but a lot of people want to get on the renovation bandwagon, and I don't know that we have a policy or that it's even possible to create a policy that deals with this, but something we probably ought to take a hack at, just so if someone comes to you, there's some precedent and something that you can cite as examples in the past and what the ground rules and stipulations are. The question would be to the group of the Garden Club. After 20 years, I got to tell you, I'm embarrassed to be ignorant that you even are of this magnitude. If you could just share with us how you do your business, how you intend to pay the money back. It's not going to come from dues, obviously, at $10 a person per year, but the kind of product that you sell, how you generate it, how you go about selling it. Do you provide for the community? Do you provide only for private purchase?
Well, that's a lot, but I'll do my best to cover it all. Basically, it's cactus, succulents, and things like that. And we harvest here in the community. I do a lot of that myself, that we go out when people have cactus that are overgrown, need to be downsized, or have pups. We go out and collect those and bring them back and then we plant them with a crew that we have there, and then we sell them to the community. And again, under normal conditions, we have sales, monthly sales, and people walk in all the time that we sell, and that's how we generate our funds. We do not purchase cactus or flowers or anything. Everything is really propagated right here from Sun City West, and we have a pretty good following. And right now we're in a transition with a new board of expanding our hours a little bit, but with the COVID we have challenges, but we are now working to some new platforms that we can engage more people and some of our club, and this greenhouse will enable us to even expand that more. That's kind of what we are, that we've really survived over our self-indulged sales that we propagate right here. And like I said, I've been doing it for 2 years. And I've been to almost every street in this community getting some kind of harvested cactus, and have some really interesting people that come in on a couple of days a week and plant, and we have a crew that does smaller plants as well. But that's kind of in essence what we are. Does that help?
With the new greenhouse, your business has the potential to really explode. Do you market yourself at all to the community, whether it be through e-news or the rec center news? Or I don't recall ever seeing an ad that you even had this offered for sale, not so?
Yes, we do. This is Liz.
Oh, good.
We go out into the independent and advertise there on a weekly basis. We are doing the news here, the monthly newsletter here, the rec center news. And we do have a club membership newsletter that goes out, or e-blast monthly.
That's great. I got to find you because I need some stuff.
Come on back. We're waiting for you.
Right behind you.
Gary, is that all?
Yes, that's all. Thanks, Ann.
Okay, I'm going to go around and just get information from the committee, whether you approve or disapprove of this going forward to the governing board workshop. So I'll start with Gary.
Yes.
Harry.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Lou.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Okay, we have consensus then to move this forward to the governing board workshop. And I now want to just open it up to any comments from the committee members. So, John, do you have any general comments? John, any comments?
No comments.
Harry.
No comments.
Kathy.
No comments.
Lisa.
No comments.
Gary.
Only comment being the first time that I've experienced this, Pete, I got to congratulate you. Detail, exact, perfect explanations, job well done.
Well, thank you very much.
That's just that's the norm, Gary. What we get every month.
That's great. Great to have him on the team.
And last but not least, Lou.
I have no comments. Good meeting. I prefer in person, but considering the circumstances, I think it went well. And Katie, kudos to you. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I would echo that, Lou. I think in person is much, much better. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, the 2nd of February. That's 2 weeks from today, and it is scheduled to be virtual. Unless we have anything that we have to address at that meeting, I'll move everything to the 16th of February. But I can tell you the 16th of February, we will probably see the first iteration of the next year's budget along with financials. So that could be a lengthy meeting, but I'll just see what we have on the agenda. Do we have any remote guest comments, Katie, that have come in?
Nope, none, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And Katie, I sure do appreciate your help in getting us on this meeting today. And I thank Carl and also the Garden Club for an excellent presentation. Shows me you've done your homework, but I think after listening to Gary, you've probably got one of the best kept secrets in Sun City West. You need to toot your horn a little more and let us all know what you've got there. As I said, the next meeting date, if we have a meeting, will in 2 weeks, will be on February 2nd. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 9:57. Thank you.